You've been with us all season, and now it's time to dig the deepest of any game of all. The serious props, the silly props, and what is going to happen in the Super Bowl. All that and more on this week's edition of The Huddle, presented by oddschecker. I'm Pat Mayo, joined, as always, for one last go-around with Pam Maldonado, Brian Matthews, and Ross Tucker on the scene in Phoenix. And I don't want to spare you with the crazy narratives that we've been building up over the past 2 weeks. You know all of this stuff. It's the Chiefs, it's the Eagles, and we need to talk about what we are going to bet on so we can get the full enjoyment of what is going to happen on Sunday. And the biggest, as it is probably the first thing you're going to wager on, is going to be the first touchdown. B-Matt, this is where you shine, so please educate us and the viewers on what's going to happen with the first touchdown.
All right, look, so there is a certain sentimental and emotional attachment to Dallas Goedert's first touchdown score, but that's not the way that I'm going to go in this game, although the Chiefs do give up a good amount to opposing tight ends. Look, my first touchdown score, Jalen Hurts. I'm going to try to keep this one simple. I went that way last week. He ended up scoring a touchdown. I just think whenever they get down in the red zone, even on design pass plays, look, Jalen Hurts is a nightmare to deal with. And they didn't let him utilize his legs really till the second half last week. So, look, he's the guy that I'd pick. And if I were doing, I guess on the other side, I'd have to go safe and chalk here. Travis Kelce, but the first pick would be Hurts.
Hurts currently plus 650 to score the first touchdown. He is the favorite in the market. Miles Sanders is also plus 650 at the moment, so 6.5 to 1. Travis Kelce 7 to 1 coming in. Isaiah Pacheco is 8 to 1. Then it drops all the way down. Ross, once we start getting into double digits, it's AJ Brown at 10 to 1, Jarek at 10 to 1, Goddard at 12 to 1. Is there anyone outside of the favorites that would take your money, let's say?
Yeah, I mean, I do think out of the ones that get to double digits, the two that jump out to me are A.J. Brown and Jerick McKinnon. I mean, it feels like Jerick McKinnon got a receiving touchdown in pretty much every game for the Chiefs over the second half of the year. I do think one of the matchups that the Chiefs like in this game, or at least they should, is their running back, in particular McKinnon, out of the backfield against the Eagles linebacker. So I can absolutely see McKinnon scoring a touchdown. And then the Eagles traded for A.J. Brown for a reason. He is the guy they go to in gotta-have-it situations. 3rd and 4 or 5, 4th and 4 or 5, whatever the number is, they usually look to A.J. Brown. That could very easily be the case in the red zone. So I like, if you're going to go double digits, you're going to go for a little bit longer odds, because I do like Brian's picks of Hurts and Kelce. Certainly there's a reason why their odds are shorter. But if you're going to go a little bit longer odds, I do think it's A.J. Brown and McKinnon are the two guys I would look at.
How are we not talking about Patrick Mahomes? That is my pick for first touchdown. I think he's a healthier quarterback, first off. 2 weeks is going to give him plenty of time to rest up on that ankle. The Eagles' defense, they are worst against defending rushing touchdowns, 22nd against rushing touchdowns allowed, versus top 10 against passing touchdowns, though they haven't faced Mahomes. But the Eagles, they have not faced a mobile quarterback all season long. They did allow New York Giants quarterbacks, because this also includes the backups, to rush one in, and we know that the Giants are rush heavy. Mahomes, in his 2019 Super Bowl, let us not forget, he ran one in against the 49ers for a rushing score. He has 4 on the season, and you're getting 28 to 1 for Mahomes, who is he balls out in these games. I expect him to do the same. I love Mahomes getting a long shot odds to have for a score.
Mahomes right now, 25 to 1 to score the first touchdown in this game. B-Matt, I want to end with you on this one because we don't know what the full scope of the Chiefs, sorry, I almost said the Chargers. They're most definitely not in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs receiving core at the moment is incredibly banged up. Would you ever feel tempted to take a long shot on Noah Gray or Justin Watson or any of these random Chiefs receivers?
Yeah, so Noah Gray is a guy where I may have targeted him once or twice when the odds were, plus 750 or above. And if their guys aren't healthy, look, I think the Chiefs will get their players involved. They always seem to make 1 or 2 big plays a game, and if you got all attention on Kelce, You never know what happens. So, yeah, I definitely would consider one of those guys. I like them. And, there are a few guys at the plus 1,000 range or above where you look at and you're like, they might have a legitimate shot here.
All right, let's go to the quarterbacks, the two stars of the game. We have Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes in terms of passing yards. Right now, Hurts' number is 238.5, and they're taking serious action on both sides of this. To the over of Jalen Hurts is minus 120, minus 110 to the under, and Patrick Mahomes all the way up at 290.5 passing yards in this game. Minus 130 to the over, even money to the under on this. Pam, I want to start with you because one of the props that has been hitting almost all season long has been the under on opposing quarterbacks against the Philadelphia Eagles. Do you think that's enough to stomach with Patrick Mahomes?
Absolutely. For a good reason, though. But it has nothing to do with how good of the defense the Eagles are, though they are a good defense. But I also do like the under on Mahomes because this could be very similar to the Kansas City Chiefs against the 49ers back in the day in that Super Bowl. The difference is that Mahomes back then, they really, when they had the playmakers, they went for those deep down the field bombs. But what you see now is that Mahomes and the offense, they've actually adapted. They're top 5. They were top 5 for deep throws, and now they're top 10 in that range between 1 and 9 air yards. So I would be looking instead to completions. I'd be looking to attempts. But the Eagles defense, yes, all season long, they have only allowed one quarterback over this total, and that was to Dak Prescott. But the rest of the quarterbacks the Eagles have faced, Daniel Jones, Andy Dalton, Justin Fields. So it is scary to go against this, but I do like the under because I like Mahomes in these long, drawn-out, short pass situations, 6-minute drives. Give me the under.
Ross, when it comes to the Eagles' defense, where do you think the Chiefs are going to have more success, on the air or on the ground?
In the air, for sure. Andy Reid, Pat, he just can't do it. He just can't run the ball. I mean, even if that is the way the Eagles' defense is lined up, even if that's the Chiefs' best chance to win the game, I just don't think Andy Reid can do it. He does not want to run the ball. Look, he's got Patrick Mahomes. He's got the best player on the planet, so I suppose I don't blame him. But I think they're going to come out chucking. I think they're going to throw it early and often. And I kind of like the over on Mahomes. Now, I liked it better at like 285, but now at 290.5, I'll still lean over because I don't think the Chiefs are going to run the ball very much. I think it's going to be all Mahomes. I think that will be the offense. I think he probably ends up over 300. Either the Chiefs win and he's over 300, or the Chiefs lose and he's trying to get them back in the game late and he's over 300. Either way, I like the over.
B-Matt, yeah. I ran the simulation on this 10,000 times, and the median outcome for Patrick Mahomes in this game against this defense with the expected spread going in, now obviously that changes if the Chiefs end up winning by 20 points or something crazy like that, but it's around 260 passing yards, which would make the under one of the better bets on the board.
I look at it, and I think, you kind of have to toss things out. I would lean with the under here on Mahomes' passing yards. I did take his completions over on his completions. I just look at the wide receiving core. I don't see, who's healthy yet. I don't really know. And I do agree. I think there's going to be a good amount of passing, but it'll be a lot of short underneath stuff. They don't have anyone to take the top off the defense right now. So I would lean the under, but we're talking Mahomes here, so it's one of the sweatier bets you're going to get. And I do agree with Ross. So if you've got Mahomes chasing, at least trying to come back, that's going to lead to some passing yards. But I would lean with the under and over on completions.
Pam, if you just bet under on everything in this game, knowing the proclivity of the betting public to just bet over on everything, you're going to get better juice on the under because just looking at every single over at this point, over, all juice. Like I said, that one is minus 130. The under is even money in order to bet it. Do you think that's, if you're going to play like 10 props, just play 10 unders?
Absolutely. Bet the unders because the total for this game has gone up. It went from 48.5 to it's now 51. So that's already the public saying, hey, I like the points. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Jalen Hurts. Give me all the scoring. Except you have two of the best pass rushes, number 1 and number 2 of the best pass rushes in the league. So that defense for both sides is going to come into play. You're going to see a lot more scrambling. You're going to see a lot more of coming out of the pocket. You're not going to see a lot of deep ball throws because these secondaries are both really good at picking it off. So interceptions could come into play. So I do like the short underneath passes. I like the unders on a lot of things this week.
Well, let's talk about this one because it's very interesting. It's total rushing touchdowns by team. The Eagles, right now, the most rushing touchdowns of any team in history, already 7, 2 games in the playoffs so far. Plus money, plus 105 for over 1.5 rushing touchdowns. That, I mean, great work by the production staff to find this. I didn't even see this one when I was scanning through all of the props. I'm like, whoa, I like the over has to be the play, doesn't it be, Matt?
You think so? This is where I was talking a little bit earlier. This is where when you see that it seems too easy, right? It starts to worry you a little bit. But yeah, if you're going on the last 2 games, and again, what they've done this season, it's not just the running backs that they have because Kenneth Gainwell has played well when he's in. Boston Scott's gotten some limited run. Miles Sanders has played well, but Jalen Hurts as well. So I think you look at that. I think though the numbers might slightly be skewed by the fact that both their first 2 playoff games were blowouts, and routes, but not really though because they took it to San Francisco, who had a great run defense early. So yes, this seems like the very obvious play and at plus money, which I love. Yeah, I'm taking it.
Ross, almost the inverse of the question about the Chiefs against the Eagles. From the Eagles side of the ball, do you think that they'll have more success on the ground or through the air?
I think on the ground, and I don't understand this prop bet at all. I love the over on this one. I mean, listen, as we're recording this, the line is 1.5 and for the spread of the game, and the total is 51. So they're telling you the Eagles score 26 points, right? Around 26 points. That's 3 touchdowns, maybe even a 4th. I think if the Eagles score 3 touchdowns, the likelihood is that 2 of them are on the ground and 1 is on it through the air, the way they played this year. So I don't think the Chiefs have the depth along the D line to really hang with the Eagles all game. I think it actually will be similar in some respect to what we saw against the 49ers, where the Chiefs D line will wear down throughout the course of the game. I know later on I'll give my official pick, certainly, but I just point that out because I do think there's a really good chance that the Eagles are able to run the ball effectively, especially in the second half, and get a couple touchdowns. I am very surprised that is a plus money bet for over 1.5 rushing touchdowns. I mean, they had like 88 quarterback sneak touchdowns this year, it felt like, with Jalen Hurts. So I love the over, and thank you to everybody that found that for me.
Can I be the voice of reason? If you can't spot the sucker at the table, I would take the under. We just talked about it. I love the unders this week. And the Chiefs, why I love the unders, because the Chiefs, they are 4th best in rushing touchdowns allowed. They are 2nd worst in passing scores allowed. This season, if you look at every single game that the Chiefs have played, that defense has only given up 5 total rushing scores to opponents to top running backs, 2 of which came from Derrick Henry. Now, I love Jalen Hurts as a runner, but he ain't no Derrick Henry at the goal line. You've been playing some really easy defenses. The Chiefs really do offer up a little bit more of a challenge. Now, the Eagles do lead the NFL in most rushing scores, 32 on the season. So, yes, it's kind of like taking the under on the Mahomes passing yardage, but it is still just very sound to bet that under because in the 6 games, they've only played 6 games against defenses that are top 10 in rushing scores allowed. And in 5 of those 6, Philadelphia only had 1 rushing score.
One note about the Chiefs' rush defense, though. I'm just curious to know, and we might not have the numbers on hand, but how many of those games, if you talk about not allowing rushing touchdowns, were the Chiefs up by a bunch in where teams just stopped running against them?
I mean, you could say the same about the Eagles. How many games were they up against? And I mean, it's a 2-weighted street here.
Yeah, I know. I completely understand. It's just sometimes when I'm trying to think, I think that overall, besides Philadelphia, obviously, and Ross, maybe you can chime in on the rush defense here, is that San Francisco probably had the 2nd best rush defense in the league behind the Eagles, didn't they?
No, they have the best rush defense. The Niners have the best rush defense. The Eagles are actually middle of the pack in rush defense. The Niners had the best rush defense, and the Eagles, if you watch the tape, totally throttled them, pushed them all over the place. And I have a new expression, Pam. It's called, if you can't spot the sucker at the table, they're the one that's been fading the Eagles all year.
In all fairness, though, you cannot use the 49ers game as an answer because when you don't have a quarterback, yes, that defense is going to wear out and get tired. So they had 83 passing yards the entire game, and they were using almost Juszczyk as a quarterback. So because of that, the defense wore out, just as Ross mentioned. That's not going to be the case here. They're fully healthy. Let's get it on board. Give me the under.
Hey, I'll be honest. No, I got to just slightly disagree there. San Francisco was the best rushing defense in the NFL. Then you had the Titans, right? And what Philly did to San Francisco last week, early, before Purdy got hurt, early. I mean, they were taking it to them early. And I don't think anyone expected that.
Also, San Fran on the road.
I think you're just taking too many unders.
San Fran on the road.
We've told you that.
It is a completely different team than compared when facing at home.
Well,
you'll fade the Eagles until you can't. I know.
Until the season is over.
Exactly.
How about we get away from overs or unders for a second and just go to a simple yes or no question. Ross, we'll start with you on this. 30-1 currently, and DraftKings has taken a $1,000 bet on this prop already. Any quarterback to have a receiving touchdown in the game. Now it's 12-1 for a quarterback just to have a catch in this game. Is there going to be a Philly special for Philly, I suppose?
Well, first of all, I don't think it'll be the Chiefs. I know that Pam likes Mahomes to score a touchdown, but boy, that would surprise me.
Yeah.
I mean, Andy Reid, if he's throwing the ball to high ankle sprain Mahomes for a touchdown, that would really – look, I think they'd catch the Eagles off guard, that's for sure, because I don't think they'll be expecting that. And that would be kind of serendipitous for the Eagles to do that the second time in 5 years, throw the ball to their quarterback for a touchdown. Not outside the realm of possibility, but I don't make it a habit of betting 30-1 bets. No, thank you. Too much needle in the haystack. The Eagles don't need that trickery. They can just pound it down your throat.
Yeah. The funny thing is about this one, I think I might know the bettor who actually placed that wager.
It was
I'm
you,
not
wasn't
kidding
it?
here. So, I don't love that one. I do think it's kind of interesting that we heard Nick Sirianni go on the Pat McAfee show and was, saying, hey, look, we might need to get Jason Kelce some carries, kind of tongue in cheek, but you never know, with that ground game, maybe they have something dialed up for him. Who knows?
The Philly special, sure, but it is Andy Reid, and he is creative, and you saw him already this season. They did, what was it, the hokey pokey, merry-go-round type of shenanigans that they had downfield. So you put him in a situation, I think Mahomes is going to be healthy and fine. Yeah, I mean, it's 30-1. Put a couple dollars on it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, I bet on golfers that are far more outrageous at 30-1 every single week. And let's not forget, I did watch a Munich game earlier this year where they threw Tom Brady a pass. So I don't think that everything is outside of the realm of possibility at this point. But MVP is the other big one that we need to talk about. Hurts is, the Eagles are favored, so Hurts is the favorite. He's plus 120. Mahomes is plus 125. Some quick notes about the MVP since the turn of the century. There have been 9 non-quarterbacks to win this award. 4 of them came on defense. 5 of them were wide receivers. So when you start going down the board and you start trying to scout some of these players, like Kelce and A.J. Brown are both 12-1, Devonta Smith 25, Chris Jones 40-1, but Pam, Hassan Reddick is 35-1. And if there is a path in this game where it's sort of outside the box thinking, like everyone kind of thinks it's going to be close, you see the spread is close, higher scoring, like a 27-24, 30-27 type game, that's what people want to happen. But the Eagles are pretty stout on both facets of the defensive side of the ball. They can get to the quarterback. Both these teams can. But I trust Philly to be able to block. And I don't know if I can say the same about Kansas City against this Eagles defensive line. Reddick is kind of spicy here at 35-1, isn't he?
Well, I will say that, yes, everything you said makes sense. But it's already a long shot as it is to bet one of these longer shot players. And the 35-1 still isn't enough of a risk to fire on. So instead, I would be looking for like a parlay. Because if you have somebody like a pass rusher who's going to, if you want to bet him to win the MVP, then parlay it with something that he needs to do and accomplish in order to get that MVP award. So he needs to have 1 sack, 2 sacks, whatever the sack offered availability, the Eagles to win, and then him to win MVP. If you parlay that, you're going to get a really nice return on that investment. Instead of just a 35-1, you're looking at like 50-1 or higher. So maybe a sack plus the Eagles win and him to win MVP would pay out a lot more than just paying for an MVP like that. But I don't like the Eagles players here. Of course, y'all know that I'm going with Mahomes at plus 125. Except the difference. is if you do like the Chiefs, they're plus 105 to win this game. So if the Chiefs win, it's because Mahomes did what Mahomes does best, brought all the magic. So instead, I would be maybe like 70% putting on the Chiefs money line, and then another quarter of your unit on him to win at plus 125 odds, which is better. So that's how I would be playing things. You're always trying to look for more value on these options.
Brian, I see what Pam is saying about trying to squeeze out the extra 20 cents on your dollar for a bet like this. But just in the off chance that it's not Mahomes, do you think that 20 cents is worth the risk if you wanted to bet Mahomes MVP as a partial bet along with your Chiefs money line?
I think, yeah, I mean, it's a solid way, but I would just go straight bet. I almost think at this point, when you look at the supporting cast around, Mahomes, if the Chiefs are going to win this thing, Mahomes is going to do it and put the team on his back. So, I get it. I like the better odds. They're already at plus odds, so I get splitting the unit count up, but I don't think I'm going to shock anyone here and let you know that I'm on the other side here of the coin. I like Jalen Hurts. I just think he does so much. He can. We're talking about passing, the ability to run the ball. He has just so many opportunities to change the game. So I think Jalen Hurts is the guy here, and I think he might lead the team. We'll talk about that later, though.
Ross, do you get a vote on MVP?
No, I don't. But if I did, it'd be Eagles O-line. I can tell you that much right now. In fact, make sure you're checking out my Twitter during the game because I might start a hashtag Eagles O-line for MVP because they are the best part of the team. They've been unbelievable. I kind of like, Pat, where your head was at with Reddick. It's just Mahomes gets rid of the ball so quickly. I just don't see, Reddick being able to have that much of an impact on the game. I do think people should take a consideration and a look at A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, only because if I'm Steve Spagnuolo, the Chiefs defensive coordinator, I am trying to stop the Eagles' rushing attack. I don't want them to run the ball down my throat. Jalen Hurts didn't play great against the Niners. I want to force Jalen Hurts to beat me. I want to force him to beat me down the field. Now, as Pam knows, if he's throwing the ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith for touchdowns, then Hurts is probably the MVP. So it's hard for a receiver to be an MVP, but I would consider A.J. Brown at plus 1,200 and maybe even Devontae Smith plus 2,500. He has made some incredible plays this year. Only needs to make a couple to be able to be the MVP.
Well,
they don't count.
Well, we've discussed sort of the major ones in the market, so I do want to go around the horn about some other props that may be festering on your prop sheet this week. Brian, what are some anytime touchdowns or just maybe some good looks that you've seen so far?
Yeah, so look, I like Jalen Hurts, and Ross kind of took a little bit of the thunder there. I like Jalen Hurts, but I also like Jerick McKinnon. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back this week. And so, but again, I don't know how much running the Chiefs are going to do. And as a third down back, McKinnon is very good. And that's one of the, it's one of the areas of weakness on this Eagles defense is they allow a lot of receptions to opposing running backs. So I think that's a solid bet. Obviously, you've got Travis Kelce there. I do like Devontae Smith. He's a guy that, you can't argue what he's done over the last, 6-7 weeks, and he still seems to be underappreciated. You look at the actual, receiving yard prop, you'd think A.J. Brown is the one that's been, doing it for 9 weeks straight. But I like those guys as far as the anytime touchdown market. I'm going to have to dive in a little further once we get some injury news for some of the longer odds players.
Pam, I want to throw this one at you because it's made my card, and I do worry that this has just been a product. The overall volume has been a product of some of the blowouts that we've seen from the Eagles over the past little bit. But Boston Scott over under 8.5 rushing yards, that could be one carry for him. So if I can just project him at 3 carries in this game, I think that he gets there.
I think the reason why it's so low is because now the expectation is that Miles Sanders is going to get a bigger workload. The reason why Miles Sanders has been under the radar is because he really only plays half the game and then he sits the second half. But because you're probably not going to have as big of a lead or even a lead at all against the Chiefs, you're going to have to play all 4 quarters now. So now it's going to take some of the workload away from Boston Scott and instead look to Miles Sanders. So my first target would be to Sanders, but at 8.5, how do you not take that? You should be having like 100 bets for the Super Bowl because it comes once a year. So add it on.
Ross, with the breakdown in the backfield for the Eagles right now, Sanders has played less snaps in 7 consecutive games at this point.
Wow, that is interesting. I know people that really like the Miles Sanders over 13.5 carries prop, and think that maybe the Eagles were saving him a little bit, especially in the second half of that Niners game. I'm not as keen on that one because Gainwell has really played well in the postseason. And I kind of feel like the Eagles will go ahead and get Gainwell involved a lot. So I don't love the over for Miles Sanders carries like other people do. I like the over for Travis Kelce catches. 6.5. I mean, they're going to throw him the ball double-digit times. The Eagles are not great in pass coverage, middle of the field. I don't really see a path where the Chiefs win this game if Kelce doesn't catch at least 7 passes. So my favorite prop that we haven't talked about yet today is the Kelce over 6.5 receptions.
Ross, why do you think it is that we've seen so much Gainwell? Is it a product of the scores of these games not wanting to put the wear and tear on Miles Sanders? Is it his improved play? Or is it something that they see at this point of the year where, let's be real, Kenneth Gainwell's a much better receiver than Miles Sanders?
Well, it's what's weird about Gainwell, Pat, is he's kind of their like short yardage goal line back, but he's also their third down back. So that creates a lot of situations where he's in the game. He's been more productive, I think, the last couple games than Miles Sanders. In fact, I think he's probably, played well enough that they'll probably let Miles Sanders go as a free agent after this year. So I would be looking at some of the. I mean, I like your Boston Scott 8.5 yards, but I'd be looking at some of the Gainwell prop bets as well. People in Philly are starting to call him Playoff Kenny.
Well, I mean, if you can just glom on to another nickname that's been successful in the past, I don't see how you don't go with that route. But just very quickly on the Miles Sanders rushing attempts at 13.5. How many times do you think he's had more than 13.5 carries since, let's say, week 8?
I'd say 2.
3 is the answer.
All right.
It's not often.
I took Boston Scott 2 weeks ago. They offered him at 8.5. Took him there. He ended up scoring. I think it was like a 10 or 11 yard gain. It was like, all right, we'll take care of that in one play. But no, I like Gainwell. He has been getting a lot more run, and a lot of my friends in Philly are very high on Kenneth Gainwell. So, and he's a different kind of threat than Miles Sanders.
Pam, I lucked out in the San Francisco game. I played a triple banger Miles Sanders under same game parlay, under receptions, under total yardage, under rushing attempts. And he was about at all 3 of them at half, and then we never saw him again. So that was excellent news.
Well, then thank you, San Francisco the quarterbacks for all getting injured.
There
was no reason to play him in the second half.
Well, there was it's funny that there was no reason to play him in the second half of this game. This is why I'm so torn on what his usage is going to be. Because you could say they were resting Miles Sanders to make sure he didn't get hurt, but they came out in the second half and ran Jalen Hurts like 7 times on one drive. Like,
well, he needs to, but that's the difference between the two is that Jalen Hurts has been off and on here in the last few games. So he's trying to get out of that rust because he got injured, came back a month later, and then they had the first week bye and then they came back. So he is trying to shake off some of that rust, whereas some of these other players have rhythm built up because they're playing every game. And that's why I don't like Gainwell. And I do like Miles Sanders because it's just, as I mentioned, they've had these leads in every game that they sit players in the second half, rest them up. You can't do that in this matchup. It's the Super Bowl. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's Andy Reid. So I am focusing more on player ones. That would be Miles Sanders.
Well, I am going to be taking the under of his 1.5 receptions. Unfortunately, Ross, it's juiced to minus 190 at the moment, so that needs to be a piece of the same game parlay. Yeah. He hasn't had more than 1 target in a game in any of the past 6 games and hasn't hit this over since they played Tennessee at the very beginning of December, where he had 2 catches on 2 targets. So he's not especially now with sort of it's really a 4-headed running back system once you include Jalen Hurts into this and the way that they're divvying up carries. I really feel like the prop key to this game, the daily fantasy aspect of this game is if we can get the Eagles rotation right at running back, we can just print money here.
Yeah.
But I don't know. So you need to spy on their practice or something. Spygate on it for us.
Yeah, good luck, Pat. I think a lot of people think it'll be. We've now said all of them. I got people that say the over for Miles carries. I like Kenny Gainwell. You guys like over on Boston Scott. So now we got people going over on all of them. That's not a good sign. Ask the queen of the under.
The only over that I like is the Miles Sanders over, which is now 60.5 rushing. That's the only over that I've taken. But I do like two other props that I haven't mentioned, and it's both quarterbacks to throw an interception. You're getting plus money for Jalen Hurts at plus 115, and you're getting minus 105 for Patrick Mahomes. Now, I like Jalen Hurts because he may be the lesser healthy of the two quarterbacks. His shoulder injury is still potentially a thing. He kind of really did look really shaky here, and I'm saying it's because of the rust. He has thrown an interception against some of these really good defenses, and the Chiefs, they are really good at intercepting passes and they have forced an interception in nearly every game here in the second half of the season. Now that's just Jalen Hurts. But I do also like Patrick Mahomes to throw an interception because he has had one interception in his last 6 games. That doesn't bode well for taking this bet, but he is top 10 in deep ball attempts. He is down. His down to field tendency works really well for a Philadelphia defense. They are an opportune defense. They are 7th in opponent thrown interception percentage. So I think both of these quarterbacks who just like to ball out, you're not going to be able to run against either of these defenses, just have an opportunity here to throw a pick. And now which one is it going to be? I like both of them, but I'm sure at least one of them will.
All right, before we really break down the game itself, we have stupid props that we can go bet on. At least at some of the books, they are offering even money on each side of the coin toss. Now, Pam can't take an under on this one. You got to take a heads or a tails. Of note, tails has hit 6 of the past 10 years.
Tails never fails. That's it. Keep it simple.
So tails for Pam. What about you, Brian?
Hey, I'm going to go heads here, right? Let's try to see if it can start to even out the odds here. I mean, look, it's 50. I mean, look, we're talking about a coin flip here. You know, it's like the No Country for Old Men scene. But, you know, hey, look, if I'm going to pick one, I'm going to go heads here.
All right, Ross, do you have a specific lean on which way the coin is going to come up?
Tails. Always tails. There's a reason why tails is won 6 out of the last 10 years. I'm convinced that like the indentation, if you ever look at a coin, okay, the head like juts out a little bit. Like the head has some topography to it. It weighs a little bit more. The tails is flat. The head weighs a little bit more, so that's why it more often lands on the head for tails. It's science.
So you're saying NFL rigged?
NFL rigged, coin toss rigged.
One thing that actually could be rigged, yet we don't have the inside info because Ross wasn't paying attention on the sidelines, is the Gatorade color. So orange is plus 350. That's the favorite. Blue, 4-1. And then you have green/yellow is also 4-1 before you get into red/pink, which is plus 450. Of note, the Eagles had yellow in 2018 when they were victorious, and the Chiefs used orange in 2020. So Ross, are you holding out on us here?
Here's what you do with this, okay? Follow the money. Somebody knows. Somebody will know that day or before that day. You'll start to see the odds getting shorter for orange or yellow or whatever it is. Once that happens, jump on it. This is a predetermined outcome. Somebody knows the answer. Somebody's going to start betting on it because they know. That's when you get in on a bet like this.
It's a good plan.
Well, I mean, we're going to have to track down that inside info, and I won't keep it to myself. I'll tell the people. I can't speak for everyone else on this show, though. But before we get into the big game, oddschecker is doing everything they can to get you ready for the big game this weekend. And as great as our picks and best bets are, here's an opportunity to do even more. To celebrate Super Bowl 57, oddschecker's giving one lucky fan $570 straight into their pockets. That's right, $570. All you got to do is follow us on Instagram at oddscheckerus, like our pinned post for the contest, and if you want to step your chances up even more, tag a friend for an extra entry and comment, quote, the Huddle. So again, follow oddscheckerus, like our post, and tag a friend and comment the Huddle for an extra entry. 10 seconds worth of work for your chance at $570. let's get into it. The game is currently Eagles by 1.5 points. This has fluctuated a little bit. Opened at 1, went to 2. Now we've met in the middle. As Pam has pointed out before, the total has gone up a few points since the overall opener. So the team that looked better in the championship game is the favorite, and people like both these teams to score because they like to watch the game, be entertained, and see a bunch of points. So the over has gone up. This isn't really dissimilar from what we see in most Super Bowls. It is fun that the spread is so close. No one is an overwhelming favorite. But, Ross, I want to throw this out to you first. I do think it's going to be a close game. I think that the Eagles are going to end up winning. This is why, when you come into the game with the healthiest team going, that's going to be a huge advantage. I don't really know, though. I mean, if I did, I'd just put all my money on it and I'd be good to go. I will say, though, if this game is going to be a blowout, I do feel like the Eagles absolutely wax the Chiefs as one of the outcomes. I don't see the Chiefs beating down the Eagles.
Totally agree. That would shock me if the Chiefs ran away with this one. I do think there's a scenario whereby the Eagles are just that much better up front, both sides of the ball, that they win by double-digit scores, which, by the way, if that ends up happening, then they'll be 17-1 with Hurts as their quarterback, and they'll have won all 3 playoff games by double digits. Going to be rough offseason for Pam to figure out how to fade the Eagles at that point, because then at that point, they'll be one of the best teams of all time. The thing that's interesting, Pat, though, about what you said is I do think it's going to be a close game. And I feel like you have to give the edge to Patrick Mahomes in a close game. All of us, everybody watching this show, all of us on the show, we've all seen Mahomes make the critical play to win the game late over and over and over again. Hurts just hasn't had to do it. We really haven't seen Jalen Hurts. Doesn't mean he can't do it, but we haven't seen it. That said, I'm still going to go with the Eagles. I'm torn, but I'm still going to go with the Eagles because I think they're the better team. And despite what I said about Mahomes, it feels like a lot of times, even though the team has the MVP or the better player, they still lose these games. I mean, when's the last time an MVP won the Super Bowl? Like Kurt Warner? It's been forever. Give me the Eagles. I think it's 27-24 Birds.
27-24 Birds. So Tuck's unofficial tease is Chiefs up, under down.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, if you want. I mean, I don't recommend teasing a total ever, but yes, I like that, Pat.
So Pam, it's 1 for the Eagles with Ross. I assume you love the Eagles. You always love the Eagles.
I love the Eagles. Are we kidding? No, give me the Chiefs money line. Look, okay, we're talking about the quarterbacks here. Yes, it's Jalen Hurts, it's Patrick Mahomes. But I think when it comes to actually winning the game, the person that's going to matter most in this matchup is the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, Steve Spagnuolo. He has the most postseason experience here out of all the coaches. We're talking about him and Andy Reid. Like he's just done a really great job of finding what the problem is, your strength of that opponent, and wearing them down. They're going to take away the running game. They're going to force Jalen Hurts to throw the ball. We haven't really seen a situation like that. And if you give me a situation where it is Mahomes or Jalen Hurts, I'm going to go with Mahomes every single time. That's just on the money line. I do love the under on 51, especially now that it's at 51. I already did take some of that. I didn't really like it at 50.5, but now that you're getting the 51, I went ahead and bought it. Because time of possession for me is huge in this game. In the postseason, against tougher competition, mind you, the Chiefs have won the time of possession against Jacksonville 35-25, against the Bengals 32-27. That is kind of like the MO of the Mahomes offense led by Andy Reid. When he is doing these 1 to 9 yard passes, they're able to extend the plays, they're able to drain the clock. And what does that what happens from that? 6-minute drives. So you have the pass rush from both the Chiefs and the Eagles. That's still something to battle. I expect sacks. I expect turnovers, scrambling, at least from the Chiefs, these long, drawn-out drives. So I love the under on 51, and give me the money line on the Chiefs.
Matt, the tie break is yours. Which way are you going?
Yeah, I'm going with the Eagles here. I get the thought, like, look, if we're putting Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts directly against one another, who are you going to pick? I'd go with Patrick Mahomes, of course. But I don't think that's going to be what it ultimately comes. That's not going to be the end-all, be-all. Look, Philadelphia is a complete team. I think Kansas City's defense, to me right now, is a little overblown. I don't think they're as good as everyone's saying they are. I think they're a solid defense. But I think Philly's just a very good football team. I don't think this is going to have to be on the shoulder of Jalen Hurts. I think they've got so many pieces that can hurt you. You know, we talked about the receivers earlier. You've got Dallas Goedert. You've got a few capable running backs. So I don't think this is going to be, where he has to put the team on his back necessarily. Whereas Patrick Mahomes on the other side, if they're to win, I think he's going to definitely have to put the team on his back.
Well, that's going to do it on the Super Bowl edition of The Huddle presented by oddschecker. I want to thank all of you for tuning in all season long. I want to thank Pam and Brian and Ross for being on the panel. And I do want to tell you about one more thing. Another way to get in on the big game fun for the Super Bowl. Oddschecker's running a special prop contest that's free to enter and could win you, get this, $570. Our very own Dead Prez Picks picked out 20 of his favorite Super Bowl props for the contest, from the national anthem lane to Boston Scott's rushing yards. All you got to do is pick the correct answer, and whoever gets the most right can come away with over $500. But even if you're not first, there are still other cash prizes available to win, and you can even win a month from My OC Premium. So make sure you're getting in on the fun by hitting the link in the description on YouTube.